We're going to call the Township of North Huron Committee of Adjustment agenda or meeting to order now. Our disclosure of pecuniary interests from the council. Seeing none, we'll move on. Can I get an acceptance of the amended agenda? We usually live stream, just so you know, tonight that the live stream we've been using is off now, so we're going to video stream it, and it will be on later, because our bylaws do ask us to have it on the, where people can find it, but unfortunately they'll have to wait a week. We have another way of doing it, and apparently this just popped up. So can I have that the Committee of the Adjustment hereby accepts the agenda for the August 12, 2019 hearing as presented? Trevor and Chris, all in favor? Carries. The Committee of Adjustment Authority. That the Council of the Corporation Township of North Huron enact bylaw number 05-2017 authorizing the appointment of the full council of the term of the Committee of Adjustment. Hence, it be the authority of the bylaw of number 05-2017, the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended, that this Committee of Adjustment shall perform its responsibilities. Appointment of the Secretary Treasurer, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron hereby enacts bylaw number 05-2017 authorizing the appointment of the clerk as Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer. That's all we have. Statement of presented. That any decision reached by the committee tonight cannot be used to set a precedent. New business, file number MV 05-2019 Scarborough. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Laura, I believe.
Over here, please.
Yep, there you go.
Good evening, Council. So this is the first minor variance for your consideration tonight as Committee of Adjustment. And this is minor variance MV 05-2019. For the owners are Leonard and Tamara Scarborough for 105 Diagonal Road, and the applicants Diane Jarvis of 109 Diagonal Road, and their lawyer, the lawyer that's representing both of the parties, John Chang. So the subject property is 105 Diagonal Road. I'll have an aerial photo where you can see. The purpose of this minor variance is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw. The minor variance application is a condition of a severance file C-68-2018, which severed off a portion of the subject property along the southern lot line to accommodate an encroaching garage that was constructed over the lot line between 109 and 105 Diagonal Road. And it merged the severed land with 109 Diagonal Road to allow them to have the garage entirely on their property. The minor variance seeks relief from the interior side yard setback and the encroachment of the eaves on the house in the side yard due to the existing house on 105 Diagonal Road not being able to meet the minimum setback from the new line that was created as part of the severance. So the variances that are being requested is a reduction in the minimum interior side yard from 1.5 meters to 0.6, and the encroachment from the encroachment for the eaves being permitted at 0.75 and now will be permitted at 0.15. So you can see this aerial photo. This is the subject property 105. You can see in the southwest corner southeast corner, the garage that was the subject of the severance, so that it could be accommodated, as well as the north half of the driveway. So the house there would be closer to the proposed consent, new lot line that was part of the consent. So this is the subject property, the garage there with the driveway, and that would be entirely on 109 Diagonal Road. And you can see the south side of the house, which would be closer to the new lot line, as well as the portions of the even roof that's protruding on the southern side. Every minor variance application must be reviewed against 4 tests under Section 45 of the Planning Act. The first is if it meets the intent of the North Huron official plan. The subject lands are designated residential in the North Huron official plan, and the existing house and detached garage on the subject property are permitted normal uses in this designation. The minor variance does not propose any new development on this subject property, or altering any of the existing structures, only to recognize the deficient setback. The second test is if it meets the intent of the North Huron zoning bylaw. And the existing residence on the subject property is a permitted use and structure in the property zone, which is R2, residential medium density. The provisions in the zoning bylaw do require a 1.5 meter setback on a side of a house not attached to a garage. And that an eave off a house is permitted to encroach into a yard, so a setback that is required at 0.75, provided no part of the structure itself extends closer than 0.75. So since the side of this house will be located at 0.6 meter setback from the lot line, the eave encroachment setback, the eave would be encroaching over that 0.75 and actually located 0.15 back from the lot line. So the measurement encroachment is based on the existing house, measured from its closest point, and it does not alter the current residential use, density, or lot coverage of the subject property, nor the abutting property that was also involved in the severance in 2018. You can see here another angle of the property. This is standing on Diagonal Road, looking directly at the new lot line that would divide the two properties. The third test is if it's appropriate for the development of lands in question. So this minor variance was reviewed against several topics to ensure that it did meet the appropriateness of minor variance. The first was access. So as part of the severance in 2018, in addition to severing the land for the garage to be added to the house, an easement was placed over the severed land. So that easement would be in favor of 105 Diagonal Road, so it would allow the White House their access and the ability to legally travel over the land to access their rear or front yard and provide maintenance on the south side of the house. Fire separation. So I did receive comments during the circulation from the chief building official regarding concerns about the distance between the south side of the existing house on the subject property and the neighboring house with regards to the appropriate fire separation should this new lot line between the two come into effect. Because this would be the fact that there are windows on this side of the property and that the distance is insufficient for the proper fire separation. There is a solution to this proposed, is that a recommended condition is both parties, the owners of 105 Diagonal Road and the owners of 109 Diagonal Road, enter into an agreement called a limiting distance agreement. So this agreement is signed by both parties, recognizing that based on the new lot line, there's deficient space according to the fire separation, so that neither would build closer to each other to maintain that distance, and that they recognize a new, almost imaginary line between the two of them for fire separation purposes. So this agreement is registered on title so that it's with the property, not with the existing owners, and it remains there to prevent each building from being built closer to each other. Stormwater management. So with the existing eaves and roof line at a reduced setback from the lot line, it was important to ensure that any runoff from this existing house was not traveling over onto the neighbor's property and possibly disturbing it. You can see on this photo that the downspout coming off on the south part of the house is actually directing water right onto where the approximate lot line would be. So one of the recommended conditions is that water is contained and controlled on the subject property and diverted away from the neighbors to ensure it does not travel or pool on their property. And then the visual impact. The intent of the severance that was completed last year was to correct the current scenarios with regards to the encroaching garage and allow the correct party who was using the garage full legal access to it. And it does not change the existing densities, structures, and would have no visual impact, as nothing is being proposed to change visually or structurally as a result of this variance and the subsequent severance. So it is that with these successfully addressed through the recommended conditions, it's appropriate for the subject property. And the final test is if it's minor in nature. The objections themselves are more than half of the required interior side yard and eaves due to the encroaching garage's proximity to the house and where the existing house is located for the new lot line. With the above items addressed, so that would be the ones, access, stormwater, fire separation, and visual impact, through consultation with both the legal representative and the recommended conditions, the requested reductions are considered minor. The current uses, access, and building setup are currently agreed upon between the two parties who own these properties, but by having these items addressed at this point in time through the variance conditions, we're setting it up so that should these properties change hands, we aren't creating a problem for a future owner, which is what we're hoping to avoid. So I didn't receive any comments during the public circulation, and I did receive comments from the building official with the 2 recommended conditions as included in my report. If any arise tonight, then council should consider them, but the representative was unable to be here. So I think that's it. Oh, sorry, here's the sketch. It doesn't clearly show where, this is the new lot line, but you can see the existing house on 105, as well as the garage. And that would be the severance line from C6818 and the applicable policies that are reviewed.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. 7.1.3, comments from the applicant or his her agents. Would anybody like to speak? Everything is good out there? Okay. 7.1.4, are there any other comments from anyone? Seeing none. 7.1.5, the Committee of Adjustment members, questions or comments? That would be the council. Go ahead, Trevor.
Laura, can you explain to me why this minor variance wouldn't have been dealt with back when the severance was dealt with?
So it was included as a condition of the severance. So they chose to apply and ensure that the severance was granted approval by the county before deciding to
So they
apply.
wanted to make sure the severance was approved by the county before putting in the minor variance application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll keep moving right along. 7.1.6, the recommendation of the Huron County Planning and Development Department approval with the conditions as outlined in the report from the planner. Not only. Oh, Laura, sorry, that's asking for your recommendation.
Yes, recommended approval with the conditions included in the report.
Thank you. And we're gonna go to 7.1.7, recommendation to the council from the Committee of Adjustments. With the effect of the public and agency comments in the decision of the council as per, that's what that chart again.
Yes, so this would be a chart. Yes.
So I'm gonna go for the motion, guys, and then we're gonna talk about the others, just, I'm gonna change this on the next, before the next meeting, so it's in proper order. That the Committee of the Adjustment hereby recommend to North Huron the minor variance application NV 05-19 as it applies to 105 Diagonal Road lots 70 and 71. Plan 148 Wingham, subject to the right of way. Wingham Ward, Township of North Huron. Applicant owners Diane and Larry Jarvis, Leonard and Tamara Scarborough, be approved with the conditions set out in the Huron County Planning and Development Report, prepared by Laura Simpson at the August 12, 2019 Committee of Adjustment meeting. Do I have a mover? I'll take Kevin, and seconder will be Chris. All in favor? Carries. Now we're gonna go back up to the numbers. Trevor, would you like to lead us on that one again? If you don't mind.
So, we had no public, there was no public comments at all, so it would be 2A for no public comments. But, and then I would say concerns raised were addressed through conditions or approvals, would be 4B. Comments were received by agencies, which would have been the chief building official, as it relates to the drainage, as well as the fire separation. And comments were received and through conditions of the conditions they were dealt with through those conditions of both the agreement or the lease agreement that they're signing together, as well as the storm management plan that's been established as part of the conditions of the minor variance.
So we good with that one?
So it'd be 4B, 2A and 4B is my thoughts only.
So Trevor's gonna make that a motion. Do I have a second? I have Anita. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. That one's done. Now we're gonna move on to MV 06-2019, granting apologize if I said that wrong. Laura will correct me, I'm sure.
Currently.
Pardon me?
Currently.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, file MB 06-2019. The owners are Carl and Melvina Gremling, and Carl is the applicant. So this is for 356 Summit Drive here in Wayna. And this is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw. For the applicant is proposing to construct a one-story carport attached to the existing house on the south side of the property, and are seeking relief from the minimum interior side yard setback distance and the encroachment of the eaves in the side yard. So this property is zoned R1, residential low density, and designated residential in the North Huron official plan. The minimum interior side yard setback is at 1.5 meters. The proposed interior side yard setback is approximately 0.75 meters, so 0.75 meter relief is requested. And the encroachment again, so the eave is allowed to encroach up to 0.75 into a side yard. In this case, it would be beyond that, so the permitted eave would be set back at 0.35 from the lot line. This is the subject property here on Summit Drive. So reviewing the 4 tests of the minor variance under section 45 of the Planning Act is that the application meets the intent of the North Huron official plan. These subject properties are designated residential, and an attached garage or carport is considered a normal permitted accessory use to a house in the residential designation and in the primary settlement area such as Wingham, and continues to maintain the residential nature of the property and surrounding neighborhood. You can see the site photo. This is standing on Summit Drive looking at the house there, and the driveway that exists that would be proposed to be covered by the proposed carport. The second test is if it meets the intent of the North Huron zoning bylaw. Carports are considered a common part of the residential structure and are permitted in the R1 residential low density zone. The provisions do permit a 1.5 setback, and this is requesting the relief of 0.75. The definition of a carport in the zoning bylaw is a parking space partially enclosed and has a roof and is for the purpose of storing one or more private vehicles. It's not the same under its definition as an attached garage or detached garage, which are fully enclosed. The application also seeks relief for that the encroachment of the eaves, which means that beyond the side of the building itself, the eave would extend further into the side yard. In this case, the applicant has stated that there will be eaves trough to take the stormwater away from the roof to the rear of the carport and away from the abutting lot line, so it does not end up on the neighboring property. And the existing of the carport to the existing house would not exceed the maximum lot coverage as permitted for this zone on the property. So you can see here, this is standing on the subject property's driveway, looking towards the rear of the property. The red line is where the actual property line ends, and the yellow would be the edge of the carport there. The test of is it desirable for the appropriate development of the lands in question. The carport is proposed to be constructed in approximately the same location of the existing driveway, with the existing asphalt removed and replaced with concrete to the edge of the carport. It's on the subject property is on a residential street with houses of similar size and density. There are other houses in the area with carports attached rather than enclosed or private garages. It is noted that this would extend closer to the road, further than this house or the one neighboring to it and other carports seen in the area, but it would be required to be permitted back from the road at 6 meters. That's the required distance from the road and would not extend further to the road than that. So an appropriate development for the subject property and would not have a detrimental impact on the streetscape. You can see here, this is the submitted design from the applicant for the proposed carport and the extension of the roof over the structure. The question is the minor in nature. The reduction for the proposed carport is half of the minimum interior side yard for an attached carport, and is requested by the applicant due to the existing width of the lot and the house orientation that exists that prevents the addition of a carport to meet the minimum setback and still accommodate a car to be entered. The encroachment of the eaves is also considered minor but necessary to allow for water to be prevented from being added to the neighbor's property and properly directed away to either the front or rear of the proposed carport. And the open design that's being proposed does not permit a solid wall that would be against the neighbor's property. Comments that were received during this application circulation were from the chief building official that stated that again, due to fire separation distances, this open carport would not be permitted to be fully enclosed and created as a solid structure because of the fire separation that wouldn't permit that. And they also expressed that stormwater should be addressed through each trough to prevent it from going onto the neighbor's property. So the conditions that are being recommended for this application is that the carport is shown as in the elevation and that it's valid for a period of 18 months as standard for minor variance in withdrawn.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have comments from the applicant or an agent? Anything you'd like to say? Yes?
Thank you, Reed.
Well,
Sorry, my name is Scarborough. We've looked at quite a few options to try and get something in there at carport. We've got a grade drop at the back of just before that extension. So, and that is the only place we have to put it in on that side. But when that house was put down, as well as Royal House was already put down, the orientation on the survey is quite crooked. It's not parallel to the lot lines. At the front of the house, we could fit in, because our proposed plan is for a standard width carport, which is 3.4 meters. I don't know what the feet and inches are. It's 3.4 meters, and at the front it can just fit in. But because of how it was put down, it cannot fit in at the back. And then the longer we would extend that line, the bigger the problem becomes at the end. So since we bought the house, or before we bought the house, we had the need for something to enclose our vehicles in for winter, just to have it covered. And we come from a history of, that's how we were brought up, to try and protect your vehicle and keep covered and other things. Yeah, that's at this time what I'm going to say. So this is the only option we have to put it in. So, yeah, thank you very much.
thank you very much. Any comments or questions for him from the council? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Yeah, I was a little concerned how it juts out to the road, because that, and you did explain that because the house was crooked, it kind of changes things at the back. I'm just thinking of the neighbors, because it sticks out a lot. I know, Laura, you said it's within the limit. It's just a concern. I really wish it was able to shoot backwards.
Can I distribute some of these? This is just something from the Year in GIS website, which is...
Oh, sorry.
It's just a picture of how it would look, speaking to that specific question.
So we're good with that? I just have to watch the
Yeah.
bylaws of the town, so I'm just checking with
Cool.
you. Yeah, we're okay, my friend, you can.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
So it's a bit better than the actual resolution on Google. I know you need to put two pages. Yeah. 2 pages. It's a bit better resolution than the normal Google Maps. So what I try to do is, the extension would be just to where that walkway is. So I try to draw in a block right there. Let's put that this way. And just color it with close to the same color as the current roof is. Just to get some perception of how far it would actually extend. Because on the survey, it also smuggled with my head, the survey line that's included in the application, the survey line, I believe think for a while as well that that's the road, but that's the lot line on the survey. So that is how far it would extend, and if I go further than that, then I'm encroaching on the building line to the front, so I cannot go further than that. So that is gives you a better perception of how far it would extend when it's connected to the house.
Yeah, I'm glad to see this, because your diagrams that we received here didn't show that.
The 3D,
Yes.
and that's just because of when you pull the camera down to try and get a front view, it blows up like standing closer to it.
Fair. No, this looks quite acceptable.
And then we would extend, I heard you say it's sticking out quite far. In our neighborhood, if you just go across the trail up in Island Drive, Grandview, sorry. I went to measure one of those houses. There's a specific plan of house, there's quite a few of them in Grandview. There's 13 of them, with the garage extending to the side. It's 1.5 width, so it's a bit wider, but they extend 5.4 meters. I had a lady there, she was there, so as I committed, 5.4 meters from the actual house line that the garage would extend, and it's enclosed. Whereas ours would extend 4.3, 4.2 meters that it would extend. Then down in Summer Drive, just around the bend, there's also a house that's got that extension, and they are 4.5 meters. So naturally it's a bit shorter extension from the line of the house, whereas in Island Drive it's a bit further. And they are 11.5 meters from the road, and we will end up 11.3 meters from the actual curb. Does that answer the question?
Thank you very kindly. Any other questions or comments? Laura?
Oh, I just wanted you to know, Reed, that there are other people to see the application tonight.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry, I didn't mention that.
Yep, yep, so it's next on the list, 7.2.4, comments from others.
Hi, I got a prepared statement here. And some pictures.
And apparently I have to ask for permission from the council to allow you to give the pictures out because they're not involved in, they're not on the agenda package that was given out, so. And Paul's gonna second, all in favor? Okay. So we're in this very far.
Oh, sure, I'll do, just yeah, that's what we speak. Okay, my name is Ross Schroeder. I live at 360 Summit Drive, right next to the proposed carport. We're not against the carport or easement, which allows them to get closer to a property than the bylaw would normally allow. We would ideally like to see a carport that looks like the other carports on our street, does not stick out abnormally past all other houses on the same sight line as both of us. And I got a picture here. Bear with me here. That's the number.
Yeah, that's a sight line from our house.
Sight line. Notice that none of these houses go past others. Sorry. Yep, notice none of these houses protruding structures, and all the houses have similar fronts. These are the houses of neighbors directly beside us and the other side of their house. The problem we have is that the carport that is being proposed is unlike anything in town or on our street or in the surrounding neighborhoods that we have seen or looked at extensively.
These are the carports on our house, side our houses.
Notice that none of those houses go past others. None are narrow, none are protruding way past the front of their houses or their neighbor's house. The structure goes past our house over 10 plus feet and 13 plus feet in front of their house. From our bedroom window we can see it, from our front window we can see it. From every angle on the street it sticks way further out than any other structure on our street. Final, the most important reason we're not in favor of this is because we're unable to receive an adequate answer about the proposed unusual carport, what it will do to the value of our house. If we find the sightline unacceptable or weird, what are future home buyers going to think? Yeah, this is Grandview, and these are garages that Carl was saying that stick out. And that kind of fits the profile of that neighborhood, and not ours, yeah. So for all these reasons and uncertainty in the future value of our home, we would ask that all these reasons be considered and when you take this to vote. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. All right, any other comments from anyone else? Seeing none. 7.2.5. Go ahead, Chris.
Can we go back to that? Yeah. Sorry about my phone. Is there a way of you shooting it back a little bit, like just to compensate, just to help alleviate how it jets forward to the street? Like, it would be really good if you could compromise with your neighbors and have something that everybody I do realize your house has got a little bit off, but is there a way?
If we move, the further we move it back, the further we would need to move into an easement because of the angle of the house. So the further we go back, then we might have to reapply for another easement to go back a bit further. But then we've got the minimum length to fit in 2 cars behind each other. We do 12 meters and we need 11.8 with the length of our cars. So what the best we can do is move it back the overhang of our current, our parallel part of our house, that's parallel to the street, that part. If we move that back and bring up the grade before it drops too much, we might win about 40 centimeters. But I'm not sure, we might still be within that easement because we are asking for a bit more than we would actually use just to be safe. So as long as I'm in the easement and it's on that line of the roof and we can still accommodate 2 cars, then we can probably play with it a bit. But going anything further back, then we are moving. And then
If you win a car back, it doesn't work.
no.
But if you can get a meter, I'm stretching it a meter, you know, it's just less out the front.
I've looked at this, we've discussed this quite extensively between us. It was a good discussion. And I tried to look at this, and when they said it's doing something to the view, I tried to look at the angles of views. And what is in view from the closest we know from their house is about 30 centimeters off the corner, front corner. But then it's open plan. Our roofs are pretty much the same height. So, and then our cars, normally where our cars are parked, is further back, and that's where I'll always park. So that view, if you want to spoil that, always been spoiled. If we're going to attempt to get the cars under the roof, we would move the cars up at least half a car length regularly to get it in there. I don't know if that answers your question.
What's unusual here is you've got 2 car
Yes.
length. Everywhere else that I'm aware of, it's 1 or side by side. Yeah, so that's what's unusual about that.
What is, there's not a full car length that's protruding from the house, the current house line. It's not a full car length that's protruding. Because the width of our house is 7.6 meters. So that's more than a car length. So it's quite a bit less than a normal car length. Whereas the ones up in Grandview, around the Bentley Park Drive, just in Allen Street, and yeah, those are the start of the garage is on the same line as the house. So the extension is longer, that's sticking out. So yeah, so that's pretty much. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, we're going to start with Kevin and then over to Trevor.
Through you to staff. If we're building 4 new houses on a new property, would one be allowed to build that much far out, other than the other 3?
Yes, the setback basically from the road would be the 6 meters, and anything attached to the house would be allowed to permit up to that minimum setback.
So every house on that street can build out to 6 meters from the...
Anything zoned R1 with a single detach could build at 6 meters, as long as the structure is attached to the house. You couldn't put a detached garage in the front yard. The setbacks create an envelope that a building could be located in.
Thank you very much, Trevor.
Mine was more of a comment to the question. You know, and I just would reiterate the comment of the chief building official as it relates to, we have a carport, if approval is granted, a carport is designed. There is a tendency at some point to, now we have a carport, I'll just put some walls on it. Then during the winter time, it saves me having to do with snow removal and deal with all that inside the carport. Concern with that is that it doesn't fit the same arguments as a carport. And now it becomes a garage. So the concern is that how is one person supposed, because we have bylaws that are we don't have a bylaw enforcement officer driving around, in the sense of that, you know, it's complaint driven. So we need to make sure that what the process understands is that, yeah, we have a carport. Once that changes, that structure changes, if there's ever a request of doing a garage or putting walls on it in any shape or form, a process needs to be developed or advised about what that process needs to be. It shouldn't come up as a formality after the fact where all of a sudden now walls are being put up and then staff and whatever questions are asked about it. So, you know, I always have a concern about, I don't want to put a garage on, but I'm going to put a carport on, and then all of a sudden now I feel, well, after a couple of years I've put side walls on, and it says you can't add more than 60% walls. Well, I think we need to be very clear about what the direction of that is. If walls want to be put on this structure because of the impeding of the discussion about, the issue has always been about vision. It's not about, they don't have any issue about the carport themselves, it's just about the vision and where they can look at their house. So, you know, at the end of the day, if whatever we can do to alleviate that from correspondence or discussion of what that relates to, I think that's important, that we make sure that if this is granted or not granted, we understand what we would like to happen per se, so we're not getting into a condition where the carport is changed, it's.
So further to that, maybe Laura, you could give us an answer of what would happen. But right now, my understanding is that this addition is legal and conforming to our bylaws. Trevor's concern is the fact that down the road, somebody throws some plywood up there, it starts there. So how would that, you want to know how that would be handled, or is this going to turn into a whole fiasco? Do we have a way of handling that, should that happen?
Based on the building official's comments, it's my understanding that that would not meet fire separation should a carport at that distance from the neighboring building be closed off. No windows would be permitted, and anything that was put up, so plywood or anything else, it would have to prove to be fire rated. So, and not more than the 60% as he stated. So it would be something that would be not at building code or fire safety for fire separation.
Okay. Does that help, Trevor?
It's more for the public and the people who are, you know, again, the story, like, just to understand the process here so that, you know, the public has a perception of that, yeah, you put something up, that if you have an issue with it after this minor variance is agreed, and it's not the same description or descent, it's more for the public, not necessarily my issue. I know the process. It's for the people who don't. It is, I'm more over and go over ahead, Laura.
And just to clarify, any wording for this, because this variance is asking to build something that's not currently compliant with the bylaws and asking to be allowed to be permitted, all wording in both the notification and the approval of conditions. So the notice for this meeting here tonight all very clearly stated that it is a carport and gave the definition in the notice of what a carport is. So that if there was ever a time when something was proposed after it was approved to be built not as originally shown, it wouldn't meet that.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I have a question there for Laura. You said the building inspector said it was not detrimental to the streetscape?
Their comments were just on the fire separation and water.
Water. Okay, in the report that we saw where the two carports are even with the house, and as alluded to, is there any possibility that the two can get together where it just comes out maybe to the house a little bit more, like it was mentioned, like the way the other ones are doing it? That's,
With further discussion?
yeah, like that's, yeah, like so it follows the plan. You're saying the other ones are even with the front of the houses, where this one's going to come out it's going to look different, that's for sure. Okay? I know it's still within the building practice, it could be done, but they said, I just feel that we could do a do it better by working something out here. And,
So in response to that, because the distance it's set back from the road is not asking for a variance, that is proposed to meet the zoning bylaw, it's not something that's being requested. So it would be, but it does play into the consideration of is this appropriate for the development of the property? So an option that I've made my recommendation in my report, but an option that council always has is if they feel that this is something that could warrant further discussion between the parties that are involved in commenting here tonight, you can defer this application and not make a decision on it. And it can be brought back at the next council meeting or the one after that for an update and further discussion for a decision the council can make then. So you don't have to make a decision tonight. That is always an option for council to consider.
So my understanding, Paul, if I understood that properly, if you wanted to defer it to a further council meeting so that the groups involved can have further consultation. Do you want to make that a motion?
I will make that a motion.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Chris? Questions or comments from the rest of council? Seeing none, I call the vote. Did you want to speak to it, Chris?
Yes, please. Yeah, along Paul's line, I really, because there's a neighbor that has an issue, it would be nice, and I don't know if we can demand it as a point or not, but if we can ask the bill inspector to work with the client and see if it can be set back a meter or something less, anything more, just to alleviate the distance. Because according to the road, this would be the only one that juts out. And I always understood that you allow things to happen that work into the landscape, and this one doesn't. So I would like us, and it does fit in by bylaws, but because it doesn't fit universally down the street, if we can make any type of change, just setting her back to help.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So, we have a motion on the floor. Do I? Yes.
So just to clarify for everyone's benefit, the motion is to defer to allow continued discussion between the applicant and his neighbor and possibly recheck measurements to see what's possible for resolution.
Yes, it was passed by Paul and seconded by Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Okay. So that one will come back before council another day. Okay. So we're gonna go to number 8 now. Rule of the Committee of Adjustment, minor variance procedure following public meeting. The Secretary Treasurer sends within 10 days a certified copy of the decision indicated at the last day of the appealing to the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, LPAT. 2, the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, if requested. C, each person who appeared in person or by counsel at the hearing and who filed with the Secretary Treasurer a written request for notice of decision. If no appeal lodged after the 20-day objection period has expired and there is no appeal has been lodged, the decision of the Committee of the Adjustment is final and binding. The Secretary Treasurer shall notify the applicant. If a notice of appeal is lodged, within 20 days, the Committee of Adjustment makes a decision. The appeal is lodged with the Secretary Treasurer, outlining the reason for such an appeal, and said appeal is accompanied by the requested $300. The Committee of Adjustment no longer retains jurisdiction over this application. If a proper appeal is lodged, the Secretary Treasurer is required to provide proper notice to the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, LPAT. And I needed a motion that there be no further business before the Committee of Adjustment, that the public hearing be hereby adjourned at 6:15 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin, I have Paul. All in favor? Carries. Thank you.